So, hello again, everybody. My name is Evelyn McColgan, and I'm here with Vincent David.
Hello.
And we are doing another Workers' Hammer video. This time it is in response to the one that we did, Vincent and Tom did, after the 13th of September demonstration by Tommy Robinson and his supporters. And we made a video that was very critical of the left and their liberalism, liberal anti-racism. That was our intended audience, in fact.
The left, yeah.
However, it was largely ignored by the left and was viewed by people, shall we say, from across the aisle, from the other side of the divide. We want to respond to some of the comments that were made.
Yeah.
The majority of the comments, needless to say, were anti-communist and, very vitriolic. But a small number of the comments wanted to engage. And so those are the people that we want to talk to, I would say.
Yeah. So this is going to be largely a response to the right wing. I know sometimes people don't like to be called right wing, but whatever.
Yeah.
That's going to be
for want of a better word.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. I think the movement behind Tommy Robinson or behind Nigel Farage, it has a lot of working class people behind it. And we know this constantly, how a lot of the working class is turning to Farage, to Tommy Robinson. So it's important for us on the left who claim to be socialists to actually address this.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing to say from the get-go, there was a lot of comments which said, oh, the March Unite the Kingdom or this movement, it isn't racist. It's not, it's about uniting the country and it's only against like illegal immigration, etc. And just to get this out of the way very quickly, we don't think everybody that was on this march or that is in general looking to Farage or even Tommy Robinson are racist. The reason we're making this video is for that. There are people who are angry, who are looking for a radical change in this country.
Yes.
And we want to engage with those. However, it is undeniable, I think, for people in this movement that there are a lot of racists who look to Farage and who look to Tommy Robinson. And there are a lot of people who on 13 September or on these march generally who are there to physically smash the left or immigrants. I think so. To anyone that says, oh, it wasn't racist or whatever, well, it's undeniable that there is a component and a core part of this movement which is motivated by hatred of foreigners, of brown and black people. And I think that's why on 13th of September, there are a lot of minority people in London who were scared of coming out, really.
Yes. I think that's an important point. It's one thing to say we do understand that the white working class has been denigrated and treated with contempt and branded as racist.
Yeah.
As a whole, as one racist mass by the political establishment and by liberals. That is absolutely undeniable. At the same time, a movement that is focused overwhelmingly on anti-immigrant rhetoric, it's an anti-immigrant movement, by definition will have as its targets all black and brown people, all immigrants, and so on. So it's not a matter of what the individuals on the Tommy Robinson demonstration themselves think. There is a certain logic to the movement. I think that's an important point.
So let's get into the main thing behind Farage and Tommy Robinson movement is generally it's about immigration, and the main point that they make is basically that immigration or mass immigration has destroyed Britain and is basically the source of, or one of the main source of the problem in this country. And then you have to, the program that follows is that you have to deport a lot of immigrant or stop all immigration. So let's just start right into it with this. What's wrong with this?
Yeah. What's wrong with it is the problem that what has caused the problem for the working people in this country is the City of London, not immigration, in a nutshell. The loss of good jobs, the deindustrialization, the casualization of labor, and the absolute decline and rot in the country, in whole communities, decline in living standards and so on, has been caused by what we call the City of London, finance, capital, banking, and so on. And so the anger that this has caused among the working class people to have it's being misdirected if it's directed into a movement against immigrants. This is not the cause of the problem.
Yeah, yeah. So starting in the 80s, Margaret Thatcher smashed the trade union movement
Yes.
and really proceeded to deindustrialize the country, sell
Yes.
off all its industry.
Yes.
And that laid waste to entire working class communities. That really depressed the working condition, living standards. By crushing the trade union movement, people could get exploited even
Yes.
more, casualization of labor. And if you look at the economy today, the economy is all organized around banking, finance. This is why there's a stagnation of economic growth, honestly,
Yes.
because all the growth that happens is financial wizardry. This is why there's a housing crisis, because the economy relies on a housing bubble for speculation. This is why the public services have been completely run down, because there's not so much of a need for the ruling class anymore to have people in education or an NHS that is functioning very well, because you don't have industry anymore.
Yeah.
Everything revolves around financial wizardry, speculation. That's really the core problem of this country in Britain.
Yeah.
Now, it is true that part of this economic model was, particularly starting with Tony Blair, it was to bring increasing number of immigration in Britain.
Yes.
The goal of this was to really depress working conditions. It
Yeah.
was to put more pressure on salaries. So the policy of mass immigration, which was pursued by the ruling class, did contribute to some of these factors, but you can see that it isn't at all the cause.
Yeah.
It's more of a symptom or an
Symptom.
additional consequence of really the City of London
Yeah.
wrecking this country. Now that we've established, really, if you want to understand anything about what's happened in this country in the last 40, 50 years, it's really you really have to see it as the interest of the City of London versus the interest of the working class as a whole.
Mhm.
And if you want to change Britain in a progressive direction, you have to confront the City of London. You have to confront these bankers. You have to really take the fight to them. And for that, really, there's no other way than to build an alliance between the working class, all the working class, white, black, brown, Muslim, all its component against the City of London. Now, when you understand that, it's very easy to see how the movement behind Nigel Farage or behind Tommy Robinson is actually a complete obstacle to advance in a progressive direction. Because by saying this movement, by saying that it is immigration, it is immigrants, and the solution is to reduce immigration or cut immigration, you can very well understand that uh, rather than building this alliance between the working class and the native working class and the immigrant working class, they are essentially reinforcing the existing divisions in the working class.
Yes.
It's kind of simple in a sense.
Yes. In fact, one of the important differences between us and the liberals, very fundamental differences, we're opposed to racism because it is against the interests of the working class as a whole to target immigrants and to direct your fire and direct the anger that has built up against immigrants, because you need the strength to strengthen the working class. You need unity. And so it's not to make us better people or to feel better or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's because it is in your vested interest to take on the force that is really the cause of everything that the working class has suffered over many decades. You need the strongest possible unity and the best fighters against the establishment.
Yeah, and the fundamental problem with the liberals who often dominate these anti-racist marches, that they basically support the policy of mass immigration of the government over the last decade, and they call everyone who doesn't support that a racist, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's obviously wrong, and basically they end up falling into the divide and rule framework pushed by the liberal bourgeoisie. However, what the response of Farage and Tommy Robinson and their supporters, what it is essentially to blame the immigrants for the problem of this country, and really channel what they're doing is really taking that anger that exists in working class community, that deep anger against the status quo, which the liberals sneer at. The liberals, look at with contempt and called racist. So they take that anger, but really channel it, rather than channeling it at the root cause of the problems of Britain, the City of London, the bankers, as we said, they really channel it against one group of the population. So you get, again, the same divide and rule that we have with the liberals, but in a more like crude manner. It's for them, for Nigel Farage, for Tommy Robinson, it is native born people versus immigrants.
Mhm.
And you can see how a movement for this will only benefit the city of London.
Yes.
Because for the city of London, as long as the working class is not united against them, they're happy. If the working class is at each other's throat, native born workers versus foreign born workers, they're happy with this. They can make a load more profit. And honestly, when you look at Reform UK, or yes, they criticize the establishment, they present really as opponents of the status quo, but really Reform UK is preparing itself to rule Britain for the interests of the city of London. They're just
Yes.
going to do it a bit differently than the previous liberals of the previous decades. But what is the deal they're offering is that we will keep everyone at each other's throat in the working class.
Yeah.
We will push this immigration question. And in the meantime, we can continue privatizing the NHS, privatizing public services, and really destroying the last working class gains that exist in this country. So that's the direction of travel with Nigel Farage, with Tommy
Yes.
Robinson, really.
Yes, and the establishment could very well adopt Nigel Farage. They could accommodate to Nigel Farage as the
All
prime minister.
bankers.
So they're all bankers. So
Richard Tice, Nigel Farage, like they're
yes,
traders and bankers. Like
yes,
they're not going to go against the city of
yes.
London, obviously.
So all the anger that they have gathered towards themselves to direct against the establishment, the only result will be a new face on the establishment and more of the same grind for the working class
Exactly.
in a much more weakened and divided position. You know,
Yeah.
English native born against immigrant, Muslim against English or British or whatever. This is a bad situation
Yeah.
for the working class. This is a very bad development. We're very much against it.
Yeah. And so what we say is that so there needs to be an alliance between all the unity of the working class against the city of London.
Yeah.
Now, how can we get this? The only way you're going to get this is if the native working class takes up the defense of immigrants, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Because why would immigrant worker unite with the native born workers, right? It's only if the native born workers say, look, let's ally together against the force which is destroying both our livelihood, because immigrant workers are ultra exploited, right? They know it. They're not stupid.
Yeah.
And they're exploited by the same people who are exploiting native born workers. So there's
Yes.
totally a basis here, but it has to be on the basis of we will defend immigrants. We will oppose any attempt by the ruling class, by the rich, to go against immigrants and pit immigrants against native born workers. And so that's why, if you want to build that alliance, you have to combat Nigel Farage. You have to oppose Tommy Robinson. Because for immigrant workers, it's pretty obvious that Tommy Robinson is an enemy of them.
Yes.
Is there to either smash them physically or at least deport all of them. So the only way you'll get an alliance is in opposition to this movement, actually. And we tell working class people who do look to Farage and do look to Tommy Robinson, you need to break from this because they're using you. They are using your anger, legitimate anger, to really pit it against immigrants. That's really the problem. And the liberals, what's really frustrating, I think, in working class people is that the liberals sneer at this anger.
Yes.
They say, "Oh, you're racist," you're because you don't like the fact that some bureaucrats in Whitehall is sending refugee in your town, which is completely destroyed and deindustrialized. Oh, you're racist. Now we disagree with this. This is stupid on the part of the left. However, don't be a pawn in Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson's scheme, which is really to rather than to direct your anger at the city, is to direct it against those refugees and against those immigrants. No, you're the only way workers are going to be better off is if they reach those layers against the city of London. But that's exactly what Tommy Robinson and Nigel Farage don't want you to do.
Yes, you'll be actually reinforcing the chains that are holding you down.
Of course.
And I think there's another point to be made as well about the divisions that already exist, because a lot of Tommy Robinson and people like that, they speak a lot about the lack of integration of Muslims and so on.
Yeah, so the Muslim community is often really at the center of this movement.
They're the central target. They're extremely vulnerable, and there is a history of racial divisions within the working class. That's those factors are real. They've gotten worse because of deindustrialization, because for many of the existing maybe second, third generation of immigrants who came from the former empire, let's say Indian subcontinent, parts of Africa, and so on. If they came here in the 1940s and 50s, there was a strong industry, so they could find jobs in the factories, in the steel plants,
Yeah.
the car plants, the textile factories, and so on. And while they were still discriminated against, at least they were working together with white people. They were in the same unions.
Yeah.
They generally voted for the same party, which was the Labour Party by and large.
Mm-hmm.
But with deindustrialization, there's less of that kind of integration at the workplace and more isolation. So it takes a conscious effort to actually reach out and overcome those kinds of divisions, I think.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. The Muslim community is often like a prime target of the right, and really it's easy to go against the Muslim minority. Why? Because they are an oppressed minority in this country.
Yes.
Like, that's what the right obviously conceals, but Muslims are a minority. They're, I don't know, 4 millions or so in this country, and yeah, they are oppressed. Like, this country is majority Christian,
Nominally, at least.
nominally at least, yeah. And it's easy to take that community and make it the scapegoat for all the problems of this country.
Yeah.
Now, why are there problems of integration? Because it's true that the liberals, they never want to talk about this. They never want to talk about that there is maybe a problem of integration, that there are communities who live really in their own communities and do not integrate.
Yes.
Well, I think you mentioned a big point, which was the economy.
Yeah.
There's no more factories where people can work side by side, which is a massive problem for integration, as for many other things. I think you also have to view it in terms of the Muslim community as a result of oppression.
Yes.
It reminds me sometimes of the Jewish communities in Eastern Europe in the 19th century.
In the ghettos.
In the ghettos, they would live really together because they were persecuted.
Yes.
Because they were gone after all the time. And when you're gone after all the time and you're persecuted, the natural sentiment for that population is to stick with their own, right?
Yes.
And actually to view integration as more of a threat than a plus, right?
Yes.
That's what's happening a lot with the Muslim community.
Yes. And when you see something like the riots of last summer, then this reinforces this idea that you must stick together for defense purposes.
Exactly. And I would add as well that Britain has been at war for the last 20 to 30 years. Britain has been at war more or less constantly with Muslim countries.
Yes.
Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Yemen, like they've bombed constantly, and it does reinforce a certain sentiment among Muslims that the West in general is at war with Muslims. Now, so what needs to be done? It's a bit similar to immigrants. Like, the only way you'll get first integration, but also you'll be able to break that down is by if the native-born workers defend the Muslim communities against these attacks. So the ruling class, together with Nigel Farage and the press and Tommy Robinson, they all target the Muslim communities in a honestly a campaign of persecution. It's only if native-born workers say, no, we will defend the Muslim community and we will try to forge a bond together against the city of London, against those who have destroyed this country and who are exploiting immigrant labor and native-born labor. That's how actually you can bridge that divide and actually form an alliance.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean tolerating any sort of, expression of backwardness sometimes in these communities. But if you want to undercut this, and if you want to really create that link, it's going to be in struggle against the ruling class, and in struggle against those forces like Farage and Robinson who want to pit those communities.
Yes. We're talking about what it is that would strengthen the working class and, overcome this divide and rule.
And including when there is riots, like last year, what we call was for trade union mobilization to physically confront those riots.
Yes.
Defend mosques, defend the immigrant neighborhoods.
Yes.
That's how, if white workers show up and say, we will defend your mosques against these, these rioting, that will do really a lot to unify these community through a sense of common struggle, much more than, we're not talking about the DEI and respect and love the immigrants in your heart. No, it's about common struggle.
Common struggle. In fact, what we called for at the time was for the trade union branches to reach out to local mosques and local Muslim communities that were under threat, and help organize the defense of the mosques of anywhere that is under attack.
Yeah.
And we would do that again because attacks on mosques are rising.
Yeah.
Attacks on racist attacks in general are
Yeah.
rising, and that's our strategy. That's a very important
Yeah.
link to make. It's a very important example of how the working class can come together in defense
Yeah.
of oppressed minorities and act as make a stronger fist overall.
Exactly. So that's really the way forward to bring this country, forward
Yeah.
in a progressive direction.
Yeah.
Because right now, what's going on? Some people were saying, "Oh, it's not left or right. Why are why are
Yeah.
you protesting against Tommy Robinson's demo?"
Yeah.
Well, right now there's a battle in this country over who will channel the profound anger that exists,
Yes.
and we're sort of at a crossroad. And will it go? And the crossroad is, will it go into a reactionary direction,
Yeah.
i.e., native-born people pitted against immigrant people and
Yeah.
sort of at each other's throat while the city
Yes.
laughs all the way to the bank?
Yes.
Or will it be the working class, immigrant and native born, united together against the city of London?
Yeah.
And we fight obviously for the latter against
Yeah.
the former. So it is a battle of
Yeah.
which direction this country will go.
Yeah, because the latter is the only way that you can have a progressive solution. It's the only way to take things forward for the working class
Yeah.
in this country.
Which, by the way, requires opposing the Labour government. If there's any,
If there's any,
if there's anyone who thinks
Yeah.
we support, like, just to be clear, our main slogan on demos is Sir Keir Starmer, what an ass, power to the working class.
very popular.
Yeah,
slogan.
including about the other, some people on
Yeah.
the other side of the aisle. But
Yes,
anyway,
yes.
just to make that clear.
Yes. It's a key feature
Yeah.
of what we stand for, and something that also distinguishes us from the Liberals. You will not hear much
Yeah,
about
yeah.
the Labour government.
Who
In
are
fact,
usually in the Labour
they
Party.
have their anti-racist demonstration. They will have some trade union list of trade union speakers, trade union leaders, all of whom put Keir Starmer into number
and fund
10.
the Labour Party.
And so needless to say,
Yeah,
that's
which is
not
something we campaign against.
not a way forward.
So the United Kingdom, some other comments were about the patriotism.
Yes.
So why are you against unite the kingdom, right? Why is it wrong to unite the kingdom? Like, or the flag, my grandfather, like the Union flag, like my grandfather fought fascism with this flag.
Yeah.
And, this is about uniting the country. So
Yes.
why is this so wrong? Right?
The United Kingdom flag, the UK flag, the Union Jack, which that is the flag of the oppression of Scotland and Wales, and of the Catholics in Ireland, where I come from. It's the flag of the Empire, which encompassed huge section of the world. So to the people from India, Africa, or of descendants of people who came from there, this is the flag of oppression, degradation, stealing the wealth of the countries, and enriching the empire itself. So this is a flag of oppression. This is not the flag of the working class, including of England, who fought against their oppressors. In fact, just to make a point about the army, yes, people in the British Army fought under that flag. It's also the flag of the officers who sent working class soldiers to their deaths in World War I and in World War II, just as cannon fodder. It's the flag of oppression in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
It's a flag of Bloody Sunday.
Yeah.
So you must see there's a class divide in society, and you must see that one flag does not represent the two basic classes in society.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really the point. The problem with patriotism, what is it, is that there's two Britain, really.
Yes.
There's the Britain of the working class, the Britain of the trade unions, the Britain of the poor, really. And then you have the Britain of the monarchy, the Britain of the aristocrats, the Britain of the officers, the Britain of the bourgeoisie, of the bankers, right? And the problem with patriotism and this unite the kingdom thing is that it, rather than making that class division clear, it seeks to erase it.
Yeah.
Everybody behind that flag. Well, who do you think likes that? The bourgeoisie, the capitalists, the rich and powerful, the aristocrats. That's always what they want with patriotism. When they wave the flag, it is to make sure that workers forget that their own interests are opposed to that of the powerful.
Yes.
That's the whole point of the Tommy Robinson's movement, or this unite the kingdom thing. And I think
Yeah.
what you raise about the oppression of Scots and Irish Catholics and Welsh is that you cannot unite the working class of this country with that flag,
Hmm.
because it isn't an anti-fascist flag. I'm sorry, it is the flag of, yeah, centuries of oppression with the empire.
Yeah.
That's why the working class historically in this country, its flag was the red flag, because that was the flag where all workers of the world could identify with, workers in Britain and all the nations could identify with.
Yes.
And they rejected historically that flag. The fact that it's coming back is only because the workers movement has been weakened a lot. And so I think this is the danger with that patriotism movement. It erases the class line that exists between those who own everything and those who own nothing. And it's a
Yeah.
way to mobilize working people behind the rich and powerful,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah. That flag is divisive. It's a flag of division. It
Yeah.
reinforces the division of those nations. And I might just add a point about the English nation, because, yes, that is the dominant nation within the United Kingdom, but it's in the division along national lines is not in the interests of the English working class. In fact, the way forward for them is to reach out to the oppressed nations of Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, and to try and win over as their allies those
Yeah.
nations and the working class of those nations, because together there you will find some of the best fighters against empire in the past and against British imperialism today, and will make a much, much stronger movement against the establishment.
Yeah.
It's a similar point to what you just made about the need to unite with immigrants. You want a strong, united, class-based fist against the establishment, against the city of London, and with very clear aims about that, about where your
Hmm.
enemy is.
Hmm. Yes, exactly. No, it's about class unity. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to make a point, because I do understand why some people do want to fly the flag sometimes. They want to be proud of their country again.
Yes.
And it's obvious that if you look at Britain, it's really gone to the dog. And I understand how the feeling of how, you want to be proud of your country again. You don't want it
Yes.
to be going to the dog anymore. And our point is not going against that sentiment, obviously. Like, we do sympathize a lot with that frustration that this country is really, yeah, going to the dog. However, the way to solve this is really to understand why, and it comes back against the point of that City of London point. You need to confront the City of London. We need a movement that is going to stand actually for the expropriation of the City of London, and you'll build that movement only if you can ally with the immigrant workers, the Muslim community, but also Irish Catholics, but also Scots, also Welsh, and you'd only get that if you respect their national rights, if you defend the national rights of these minorities. Now, what Tommy Robinson does is actually mobilizing like British chauvinism, but also English chauvinism,
Yes.
which necessarily means continuing the oppression of those national minorities inside the United Kingdom. That's the logical outcome. So you're not going to get working class unity. You're going to get the ruling class, which maintains everybody oppressed under its rule. That's the purpose of the movement. That's always the purpose of patriotism.
Yeah. And I think we should also mention a point about British imperialism today and its
Oh yeah,
foreign policy.
yeah,
Why is it in the interests of the whole of the working class to oppose British imperialism foreign policy?
yeah,
Let us not forget that on September 13th, one of the things that happened on the Tommy Robinson demonstration was ripping up the Palestinian
yeah,
flag.
yeah,
You know, this is abhorrent to Muslims and to anybody who, there's
yeah.
not
Come
support
on.
for Palestine in this country. So this is totally unacceptable.
Yeah,
Um, but there's a broader point about why it's in the interest of the working class in this country, the whole working class, to oppose what British imperialism does abroad. We have a sign that we take on demonstrations, which is very popular. It's got a photograph of David Cameron, Tony Blair, Boris Johnson, Keir Starmer, and it says, deport the real culprits. These people have destroyed our country. And then we list the countries: Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria,
Palestine
Palestine, of course,
and Britain.
and Britain, of course. So the same people that have destroyed this country, the same establishment, have destroyed other people's countries as well in a much more, in
Yeah.
a military fashion.
Yeah. Britain used to have its own empire, right?
Yes.
And during, I don't know, a century or two, what they would do is the British ruling class would make a massive amount of money, amass an amount of wealth by pillaging essentially entire parts of the globe. And sometimes they would throw a peanut to the working
Yeah.
class, like a little thing, just to prevent the revolt, essentially.
Yes.
Now, Britain has lost its empire. However, it is still a sort of imperial power because it is in the American empire, right? Since World War II, it is the
Yes.
United States really which dominates the world.
Yes.
And Britain plays like a really a core part in this empire, right? And so it's key for the working class in Britain to oppose its own ruling class, but also oppose British imperialism and oppose the American empire.
Yeah.
Because what this has brought for the working class has only brought the industrialization, poverty. It has sent a lot of working class people fight across the world for imperialist wars, bring back death and PTSD, and nothing good for working class people. And it also has created a refugee crisis because Britain and the US destroying the Middle East, destroying countries in Africa through economic bondage. The city of London, they run a lot on debt owned by countries, which prevents their own development, and it brings refugees here. So workers have a direct interest in opposing the foreign policy of Britain, which is really the foreign policy dictated by the United States. And so, what is Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson's view on this? Their whole movement is how can Britain actually serve better the United States, serve better the American empire? And that's why both Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson are Zionists. They're really pro-Israel.
Yes.
But why is it in the interest of the working class in Britain to support the genocide of Palestinian people? Obviously, it isn't in their interest. There's massive amount of wealth in this country which are sent across the globe to help maintain the American empire. Workers have no interest into this. And the whole point of Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson is to whip up patriotism, so to make sure that support to Israel, support to the United States, and support to British imperialism, which really is the city of London, continues, right?
Yes. And that serves only one interest, which is the interest, ultimately, it's the interest of the American imperialist ruling class. They dominate the world. The city of London is, you could say, a branch office of Wall Street. It's been very much reduced. The decline that we talked about that has affected the working class, that is a fact of life. And anyone who wants to be the prime minister, who wants to take charge, including Nigel Farage, that is your status. That is what you must do. It's not negotiable. Those are red lines for the American empire. You support the American empire. You do when the U.S. says jump, you say how high. Well, it means you support Zionist Israel no matter what they do. Okay, you can put a little bit of criticism in here or there, but those are red lines. And you stay in NATO, and you will, spend money on armament as dictated by Washington, and that is your lot in life.
Yeah, because what is the U.S. doing right now? They're squeezing Britain to rearm, to spend more money on the military because the U.S. wants to reassert its dominance. Well, where is this money going to come from? You know, it's going to come from the NHS budget, the education budget, the benefits budget, the social services, everything that is good. And Nigel Farage just wants to be more efficient at this. And he will be, because if everybody is obsessed about immigration, he'll be able to do all these cuts.
Yes.
Another point on what you said, this is how they got Jeremy Corbyn as well.
Yes.
Now, we could talk hours about the criticism we have of Jeremy Corbyn.
What's wrong with Jeremy Corbyn?
Like, we're not Corbynistas.
Don't get us started.
However, we did take a side with him critically, and the ruling class really went hard after Corbyn because why? Because he was against NATO and he sort of supported the Palestinian in its own liberal hippy dippy way, but he did.
Yes.
And the whole campaign on anti-Semitism against him was a fabrication of the ruling class, because this is a red line. If you don't
Yes.
support Israel, you don't get to run this country.
Yes.
If you don't support NATO,
Yes.
you don't get to run this country, according
Yes.
to the rich and powerful. So they
Yes.
really destroyed him. And Corbyn himself, being a pacifist, couldn't really, fight back, obviously. But
No.
that tells you a lot. Why? Think about what Tommy Robinson and Nigel Farage, what do they stand for in terms of foreign policy? Like it is totally to continue to serve the foreign policy of the city of London.
Yes, yes. In fact, Jeremy Corbyn's fundamental problem, if you want to know the truth, is that he would not break with the establishment.
Yeah.
He really would not break with the establishment, which was represented at that time by Tony Blair. He supported the European Union, even though he was a lifelong Brexiteer and so on.
Yeah.
But that is the position of British imperialism in the world order. I mentioned earlier on, Canary Wharf, banking system, and so on. There used to be a joke about Britain's reduced status because, as I said, they're kind of like a branch office of Wall Street, which really dominates the financial world. It used to be said that the City of London is like Wimbledon tennis tournament. We host a world tournament, but we don't have any world players. So Britain doesn't own any of the big banks apart from Barclays, but that's its status in life. Those are the rules of the game under the imperialist system, and that no matter who is the prime minister, those rules apply. That will apply just as much, as you said, under Nigel Farage as against anybody else. So this is why it is in the interests, very much in the interests of the working class of this country, to oppose NATO, to oppose Zionist Israel, defend the Palestinians, and
because like just a broader point, like it is in the interest of the working class to support every movement in the third world, or whatever you want to call it, that is against the US and against Britain.
Yes.
Because it is a blow against those who oppress the workers here. So workers in Britain, that's why supporting Palestine liberation is in the interest of the working class in Britain, because it will weaken the position of the American empire, and it will thus weaken the position of the British ruling class.
Yes.
Make it easier for us to fight and to get gains.
Yes.
And so it's really the task communist is really to build this movement of solidarity between the workers in the West and also the peoples who are rising up for their own country, right?
Yeah. In fact, we might add that one of the reasons the pro-Palestine movement over the past 2 years in Britain has been so weak and impotent is precisely because it did not try to link up with the working class against its own ruling class. That this is exactly how these struggles need to be fought. They need to mobilize the strength of the working class and make a clear connection that it is in their interests to take on Keir Starmer and his government on the basis of jobs, the attacks on their living standards, and so on. And in that sense, take on the defense of the Palestinians as well, up against, not only Starmer and his government, but the American empire, the Zionist ruling class, and all that, because these things are linked.
So just to conclude, like, why do socialists oppose Nigel Farage, Tommy Robinson? It's simply that this is a movement which is based on exploiting the anger in the working class, legitimate anger, at the status quo, but really channeling it against the immigrants, so against another portion of the population, rather than the root cause of the problem, the city of London. And the whole purpose of this movement is to have poor people pitted against other poor people. And so that's why not only is it necessary not to follow them, but it's necessary, if you want to take Britain in a progressive direction, you need to combat the influence of that movement.
Yes.
You need to combat its politics and its program.
Yeah.
And again, we've sort of alluded in the video, this does not mean being a liberal, being a woke liberal or whatever. This does not mean supporting the Labour Party or the government. That's the problem of a whole lot of the left. It means to come back to these socialist principle of working class interests, because really the fundamental division in this country is the working class versus the city of London.
Yeah.
And if I can just add as well, like a lot of right wing people, they hate, communists or whatever and Marxist. Well, the only way you can understand what has happened to this country really is if you're Marxist. And the only way you can understand how to take it in a progressive direction is if you understand that the city of London destroyed this country. And the only way to really regenerate Britain is to get rid of that cancer.
Yes.
Removed it.
Yes. Yes, through a revolutionary struggle.
Yeah.
In fact, I think you could do worse than look at the struggle of the Chartist movement, for example. Revolutionary fighters, because anything else is a con. Anything else will misdirect your anger, as you have said.
Yeah.
But to really root out the cause of the problem, which is the capitalist ruling class, and to replace their rule with the rule of the working class, you need Marxists, you need the working class to be led by socialists, not a bunch of traitors that leads it today.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But that's why I agree with what you just said. I think is really important. You need to break with that movement of Tommy Robinson, Nigel Farage. It's another blind alley. It's absolutely another blind alley. All it will do is prolong the death agony of British capitalism.
Yeah.
So don't be conned by that, but do think about actual revolutionary solutions, because nothing else will work to regenerate this country and to make this country into something that the working class can be proud of.
Yeah, exactly. So on these good words,
on that note, we will leave you.
Yeah, hit the subscribe button, like the video, or comment if you didn't like it, and
comment if you disagree, and follow us on social media.
Yeah, follow us on social media and on YouTube. We put out regular videos about all sorts of topics. So
yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.